Hi Youth Club, Sarah here. So today's tutorial is going to be about how to make these origami flowers. I'm going to show you two ways to do it. First with newspaper and then also with the pattern sort of paper that you can see. And each flower can be made individually and then pulled together into a bouquet. Let's go find out how we do it, shall we? Okay, so the things you're going to need for the origami flower are a cocktail stick. It's not a cocktail stick, I keep calling it a cocktail stick. It's a bamboo skewer, the sort of thing you'd put meat or vegetables on for a barbecue. If you haven't got one of those, a straw would also work. Or if you haven't got a straw, you could roll up a piece of newspaper really tight, as long as it's something that you're going to use to mount your flower on. You will need a pair of scissors, some paper clips if you are going to use something other than newspaper to make your flower with, something to crease your paper with. This is a paper creaser, but it's no different to a ruler, so if you've got a ruler at home, that's fine. If you haven't got a ruler, guess what, your thumb works just as well. I've got some double-sided sellotape, but don't worry if you haven't got any double-sided sellotape, because everything I do with the sellotape you can also do with plain white PVA glue. So let's get started. I'm going to make two petals, one with newspaper, to show you how you can make your flower completely out of newspaper. Don't know about you, but I'm running out of craft supplies. And I'm also going to show you how to make one petal using some standard craft sheeted patterned paper, so you can see the difference and some of the ways that you maybe have to stick things differently if you use different types of materials. So we're going to work with the newspaper flower first. So I'm going to move my safety pins and everything else out of the way, because before we can start the project, we need 5 square pieces of paper. And if you look at a standard size newspaper, it's obviously not a square, it's an oblong. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure that we've flattened down the crease in the middle of the piece of newspaper. Top tip, if you want prettier designs with your newspaper, try and find the back end of the papers where some of the colour pictures are. Just makes something a little bit more interesting. And the first thing we're going to do to create our square is we're going to take the bottom corner of the piece of paper and fold it across to the spine and crease. So you end up with a newspaper triangle, and that leaves this little bit at the bottom, which we're going to fold over the edge of the triangle we've made and crease. And then we open it up, we're going to cut this oblong piece of paper away so that we're left just with the triangle of newspaper. I'm just going to open my newspaper out of the way while I do this. Cutting along that line that we made. And you can discard this piece, but if you need to make a stem for your flower, remember I said about rolling up a piece of paper, if you haven't got a straw or a bamboo stick, you can actually just take the bit that you've cut off, roll, 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 glue or sellotape it, and you have an alternative for the stem if you haven't got the other items. I'm going to put that to one side and bring us back to our newspaper. So we now have a square piece of paper, which is what our shape has to start with. It's quite big and it's still attached to the other square. So another cut right along the seam of the newspaper, as if you were opening it out like a book, straight down the middle. Now, if you are going to use newspaper with this, I suggest you use a daily rather than a broadsheet, otherwise you're going to have a lot of newspaper to move about with. You should end up with 2 squares. Put one to one side, you will need to come back to it. Now the next thing we've got to do is make smaller squares out of this, because this would make an absolutely enormous flower. So first thing we're going to do is fold it over lengthways, so you end up with that rectangle shape. And then I want you to fold it over again, so you've got your rectangle take the bottom corner and fold it back up so you make another square. Open it back out, and you're going to cut along that middle fold that you've made. And then again, open it out like a book, and you're cutting that middle fold again. And you need to do this to both bits of paper. So to that square, you'll end up with 4 smaller squares, and repeat again for your other large square, so you end up with another 4 smaller squares, because we need 5 squares in total to make a single flower. So I'm going to move those out of the way, so you should end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 square pieces of paper. And I'm just going to show you, if you have got some patterned craft paper, it's actually about the same size. This is a 6 by 6. I think you can do this with any size you want. And what I would say to you is, as long as it's a square, you can make the flower bigger or you can make it smaller. So I had a mixed bunch I wanted to make the other day, and what I did was I took my big square and I cut it down even smaller into 4 smaller squares, so that I ended up with some smaller flowers as well. So as long as you're starting with a square, the flower will work, and you need 5 of whatever size square you're starting with. So I'll put that to one side for the moment, and we'll start creasing. So square 1, and this is going to be the same for every piece of square. So first thing you need to do is take corner to corner. Now when you look at your bit of paper, have a think about what you want to see on the inside of your petal. Here's one that I made earlier. This is what your completed petal is going to look like, and I folded it so that the coloured piece was going to be on the inside of my petal rather than the outside, but it's entirely up to you. So on this one, I'm going to turn it over so that when I fold corner to corner, I have the dark blue inside my petal. So line up that point, run your finger down, and if you're doing this with newspaper, your fingers are sufficient pressure, and you end up making a triangle. You're then going to take the left-hand corner of that triangle, and you're going to fold it back up to the point of the triangle. And crease. So you've made a smaller triangle inside the big one. You're going to come across to the right-hand side and repeat. So take the end corner of your triangle, and you're going to fold it up to the middle so that it joins the other one. You end up with a seam where the 2 bottoms meet up with each other. So you've got 2 different triangles on top of the big triangle. Okay. Now, when you look at the triangle, there's 2 flaps that open up, and then there's the point where they meet. You're going to come down to the point where they meet. What I want you to do is to put your fingernail into that corner, and you're going to take the end of this triangle and you're going to fold it back, just crease with your finger, so that it meets the bottom seam of its triangle. You end up with an odd shaped triangle with a little flap hanging off the edge. You're going to repeat on the other side. I always find it easier just to keep my fingernail in there to pinch it like a dart. And that's again effectively what you're doing, making a dart shape. So bring the top edge of your triangle to meet the bottom edge of itself. And crease. So the shape you will end up with, a bit sort of Art Deco-ish, is a top triangle sitting inside a square, and then your 2, they're almost like torches that you would hold sticking out either side. And everything comes to a point at the bottom here. So these 2 bits can lift. Next thing I want you to do is to take the right hand corner, lift it up, take your finger, open up the 2 bits of paper that are in there, and push your finger inside. And as you do that and you push down with your thumb on top, what you will see is you make like a cone shape. And I'll just show you inside, like a cone shape. So this square stays still, put your finger in, almost a bit like making a mouse shape as well. Some people say it looks like a mouse. And then flatten. And do the same on the other side. So lift the corner, open up the 2 bits of paper that you've folded, push your finger inside to flatten, push down with your thumb, and you should create another cone shape on the left hand side. So that all of a sudden you've kept that point in the middle and you've got two cones outside on the left and right, but still coming to that point opposite the top point. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to lift the whole thing up in our hands. And this top point here, you can see, it's like a triangle tip. I want you to fold over the top so it's now making a straight edge all the way along up to the tip. Lift the top back up, pull it towards you and fold it inside so that when you look at it you have a neat edge. And if you have a look here, something really important, that fold must be inside this crease here. Can you see that? Hopefully you can. Inside that crease. If you end up folding it so that it goes that side of the crease, it's not going to work on the next fold. So just lift him back out, fold him up, and think about almost making a little cone shape. You put some sweets or some chips in, that's what you're looking for. Place him back down, crease, and you do the same on the other side. So lift your paper up on its edge, fold the tip over so that you get a crease, and then lift it back up and tuck him inside that cone so you get that little cone shape again. And then back down on the floor, on your work surface, and crease. So now you've got that straight line from the point all the way down, and then you've got straight lines coming down to a crease here. When you look at it, you'll have a line running down the middle of each of these, almost like a dart. What I want you to do is to now fold back on itself to meet its same edge along that fold. And again, along that fold. So when everything is folded, you're back to having that square shape. Hope you can all see that. With the folds on top, if you turn it over, it will just be a plain square. You want to keep that plain square down towards your work surface. Now, you can do the next step either with glue or with double-sided sellotape. With the newspaper, the double-sided sellotape is absolutely fine. With a stiffer card or paper, you might find glue is a bit easier. You're going to take your piece of sticky-sided, and on your square shape, you need to come to the outside edge of one of your folded areas. Somewhere near the top of it, place your piece of sticky along that edge. Lift. So now you've got your sellotape, don't get anything stuck together just yet. Pick your square up and you're going to fold him, but without putting a crease, and you're going to get him to meet these two edges. So gently line them up so that they're level, and then without creasing the bottom of your cone, just fasten the top edge where the sellotape is. And when you've done that and you pop it with your finger, you should have a cone with 3 inner petals. This is the seam where the glue has run, and your cone is smooth all the way around the back. That is your first petal. So I'm going to repeat that now using one of the pieces of pattern paper, just so you can see it's the same procedure. So starting with your pattern paper, pattern side down, plain side up if you're using one-sided pattern paper. Remember, square shape into a diamond, bottom corner to top corner. Line them up so they meet nicely. And this is where, if you've got a paper creaser or a ruler, this paper's a bit thicker so it helps just to keep that crease nice. Now you've got your triangle, left hand side corner up to meet the tip of the triangle. Fingers down and crease. And repeat that on the right hand side. So corner up to the middle. If you're doing this with me with a piece of newspaper, you can be doing exactly the same with your bit of newspaper. And crease. So we end up with a square shape, 2 triangles sat on top of the square. Now, find that point where they meet, finger in, and you're going to create a dart shape by creasing over triangle to meet itself on that bottom line. Turn it round and repeat. Use your finger if you need to help you get that crease initially. Fold him over into that dark point. And the shape you'll be left with is the triangle mountain at the top on the square and the two wings either side. Now remember, lift your wing up, place your finger inside, push him in till you kind of see that mousy cone shape appear and flatten. And again, if you have got a ruler, that will help. Repeat on the other side, lift your corner up, find your finger, wiggle him inside, push him down, and then flatten into that. It's almost like a kite shape, I would say. If you've ever flown a kite. And you can use your ruler or your paper creaser along the edge. Now this is the tricky bit. Lift your piece of paper up and you are going to fold that triangle over the edge that he's resting on. Fold him over, lift him back up, pull him towards you and place him inside so he's tucked out the way so you end up with that cone shape. Repeat on the other side. Fold him over to give yourself the square edge. Lift him back up, open him out and tuck him inside. Remembering that you need to have him tucked inside himself. Don't slip him down here. Tucked in there. Push him down. Then, so you'll end up with now a straight edge, both sides, meeting in a point at the bottom. You can see the line where we've pre-folded either side and we're going to fold back on ourselves now. So at the point, bottom edge, back up to meet himself. And again on the other side, bottom edge, folding back up to meet himself. And you should end up then, again, this is a little bit thicker than the newspaper, so if you've got a paper creaser, make it easier. So the end result will be a square with some triangle darts sitting on it, or at the back, just a plain square piece of paper. Keep the plain square on here. Now again, you have a decision to make. If you've got the double-sided sticky tape, you can use that. If you haven't got the double-sided sticky tape, then you can use glue. And all you're doing is putting the glue along that edge, bottom edge. Now, top tip for you. If you're using glue, you might want to use some paper clips because you're going to put the paper under pressure as you fold and get your two triangles to meet each other. So line them up at the top, and then where this piece of paper is bowing, that's what you're gluing together. Now, because PVA glue takes a bit of a while to set, my suggestion is that once you've got the middle two bits glued together, just take a paper clip and wiggle him down to hold those two bits together while you make the other thing. That didn't go on very well at all, did it? Best laid plans of mice and men. Let's try that again, Sarah. No. I think I might have got a duff paper clip here. There we go. Not a duff paper clip, it's me being a duff. So just into that middle bit there, and that'll just hold it whilst the glue sets. When you pop it open, you've got the three stems inside again. If you've got a little bow in your paper, don't worry, just put your finger in, flatten him out, and that'll be the first of your petals in pattern paper, and you've got the pattern on the outside and the inside. So you repeat that now until you have got 5 petals. So I'm going to use my newspaper ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now with the newspaper, the double-sided sellotape works really well. What you're going to do is take a piece of double-sided sellotape, because we're going to join them together now, and you're going to lay it along the middle seam of your flower. Careful not to press the cone, just put the double-sided sellotape on it. And you want to do that for each petal. Find the seam in the middle, lay your piece of double-sided sellotape ready to go. And I'll show you what to do if you're gluing in a minute. Let's get this one done first. Double-sided sellotape, not sticking to you, sticking to the paper. Nearly there. And the great thing about these is you can make as many of them in different sizes as you want, and you can collect them all together to make a bunch of flowers. There is tutorials you will find online where you can actually stick them all together and make like a 360-degree flower ball. They're quite pretty as well. So now we're going to connect them. We're going to be connecting the flowers in this configuration so that all the middle points where the double-sided sellotape are come together. I'll do it one at a time. Peel off my bit of tape on the first one and on the second one. And what we're going to do, we're going to lightly touch them together, lining them up where the seam of the cones are. The first one together and repeat. Taking off my sticky. Now be very careful when you've got the sticky on that you line them up where you want them to be, because once they've stuck, you can't unstick them. Now you just need to push them back a little bit because you want to get 5 full petals in here, not 4. So when you get to the 4th one, just hold them back a little bit. Sticky number 4. No, we're okay. I thought for a minute I'd let it go and it stuck together again. And then repeat. Just pull those back gently and you should be able to slot in number 5. And that is your completed origami flower. All 5 petals come down to a point at the bottom. Now, like I said, you can do what you want with it at this point. It's up to you whether you give it a stem. You might not want to give it a stem. Here's one I showed you earlier that I'd made that I have given a stem to. So just to show you how I did do the stem, using the bamboo stick, I've kept the point pointing down, because if you wanted to stick it into a baked potato or something and make like a little display, it'd be easier. Very simple, bits of glue across the top bit, not too much. Turn your flower over, and then you can see there's a natural gap. Just going to slide it in, and because newspaper sticks quite quickly to the bamboo with the peel, just hold your hands very gently around the bottom of the flower until it sets. And then there you go, your flower with its stem. And that means that you can start to build 2 or more together into an actual bouquet of some description if you wish to. Now, if you are doing it with the pattern paper, you will probably find that the sellotape itself is not necessarily the easiest way to do this. So these are ones that I made before. Remember, you need 5. There's the paper clips I said I was using just to let the double-sided sellotape get a good hold, or if you'd glued it, to let the glue get a good hold. So we are going to use the glue on this one now, and you'll need a paper clip for each petal. Now I'm just using big ones because it's easier for me to show you on here, but you can use the little ones just as well at home. And all you're going to do is glue down the edge of your flower. Now you've got a bit more time to finagle with these because the glue slips and slides. Line up the 2 petals next to each other and use your paper clip to fasten them. Don't worry too much at the moment about where they are other than being roughly in the right area. And repeat. An easier way to do this once you've got a couple together is to start to put your paper clip in, bring the next petal up, slide them into the paper clip and push the paper clip down. That's number 3. Okay. So start to attach your paper clip, pick up your next petal and slide them in. This is where it gets interesting. So now we've got to fit in number 5, so we're going to glue both these edges. I'm going to do one side first. They start to look like they're going to pull apart, and then if you stick it on its tail and you pull it round so they're together, there'll be a bit of tension, that's fine. That's when you fasten it with the paper clip again. And then you end up with your slightly stiffer art craft paper flower with these 5 points coming down to the bottom. Now if you're doing this with glue, I suggest you leave it for a couple of hours to dry. The stalk feature is exactly the same. You could use a straw, you could use your stick, you could use newspaper, it's entirely up to you. If you've got quite a few of these together, you can see, oh, or maybe you can't see, I'm not sure I've got the thing. You can start to actually glue them together in different configurations to make larger bunches as well. Loads of things you can do with them. So that's it from me. That's your origami flower. Have fun. Send us some photos of them when you finish them. Bye.